You are listening to Topic Paranormal with your host, Georgina Holzmeyer, and the Paranormal Brain Trust, Robert M. Brown, Nick Landy, and Rachel Sosa. Topic Paranormal covers Paranormal Talk, Paranormal Tales, Paranormal Training, and so much more. Experience the topics of conversation on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Topic Paranormal. Have a topic suggestion or a question? Send an email to topicparanormal@gmail.com or post it to the Topic Paranormal Facebook page. Topic Paranormal is part of the Astronet Radio family. Visit astronetradio.com for more awesome podcasts. And now, your host, Georgina Holzmeyer.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking with Rachel Sosa. She is another member of our Paranormal Brain Trust. And so without further ado, here's Rachel. Give us a little idea about your very first paranormal experience.
Okay, so when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I honestly was one of those little kids that liked to sneak out and get like a midnight snack kind of thing. So when I was doing that, we lived in this duplex at the time in Austin, and that's where I'm from. Hey, Austinites. So I go to the refrigerator, and I open up the door, and the light coming from the refrigerator and everything. But when I was looking down to kind of look into the refrigerator, from underneath it, there was a bony hand that came out.
When you say bony, are you
like
talking
skeletal?
Oh, wow.
Like skeletal. And all it did was just wave.
Ooh.
And then it just went right back under the refrigerator. And the only reason I know, I used to think that it was one of those childhood imagination things, but I can remember that I was wearing a little blue nightgown, that my hair was still cut short, that I remember the refrigerator being white, and I remember what our kitchen looked like. So to me, if I can still remember all of those details, it has never left me. So I know that was definitely one of my first paranormal experiences.
That sounds pretty darn scary,
and
quite honestly.
It creeped me out, but I was more like, how did that get under there? Like, that was my first thing. Like, I didn't know, like, what is that? And it just waved and then just went right back. And of course, after it sunk in, I was just like, what was that? So I was, after that, it was just, and I didn't say anything. That was the thing. It scared me, but I didn't say anything because I didn't really understand it yet.
So you just went back to bed?
So I just, creeped out, yeah. And then I slept with, like my pillow over my face the rest of the night. But yeah, that's pretty much kind of the first paranormal experience.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, it was creepy.
So your second paranormal experience, about how long was the time space in between? I'm finding that this is interesting usually.
Yeah, this went into more late teenage, early 20s. So my second it wasn't really an experience like paranormal. It was more like how I was introduced into the paranormal world. Because I already had this, for lack of a better word, morbid curiosity of like the occult and death and ghosts and things like all encompassing, with the occult. And so I had a friend who was actually, she was a practicing witch, and she was kind of introducing me to these things. This was in Mobile, Alabama, when I lived there. And she actually took me to this store where they sold, witchcraft items, everything. Well, I wouldn't say witchcraft. It would be anything that you would want to do your spiritual or ritualistic practices, like candles and charcoal, herbs, things like that. And I kind of stumbled onto this conversation where they were talking about how they, we're going to go to this, this graveyard. It's really cool. It's really old. It's supposed to be really cool. And we're going to sit there and see what happens. And me, I'm just kind of like, you can really do that? Like, you can really actually get into that kind of stuff? I was like, sign me up. I was like, how do you do that? And then fast forward to that, I'm just like, here I am being able to do things like this. Like, but that is kind of where I was introduced to things like this, other than my childhood being curious about these things. And then it was kind of morphing into my young adulthood as I can actually delve into this more. And that's kind of where my I guess abilities started growing per se was like into high school, into early adulthood. So just kind of understanding the emotions of that, but that's how I was I kind of count that as my second paranormal, just because it was just like I was able to actually start delving into this now.
Oh, wow.
So, and the occult and understanding it, and then learning about witchcraft and everything else. So.
Well, and you bring up your gifts. And for our listeners who don't know our history, Rachel and I have known each other for several years now. Yeah. So let's tell them a little bit about that. Do you remember that first night? We actually met in Waco on our way here.
We did. I remember that we were in another paranormal group, nameless. And I remember it was like at a meeting per se, and so we just I remember seeing you, but I didn't know who you were yet. And then I remember kind of further down the road, we had met up in Marlin, actually, and I think we had shared a hotel because we were doing investigations and interviews and all this kind of stuff, and we just clicked. We just started talking about things, and you were diving into the paranormal, and I think you had just gotten into it too, and I'd been in it, so we were just talking and learning about each other, and then we just realized that we click. We just click. We just have this connection, and I don't see it ending anytime soon.
I hope not.
But yeah, I mean, you just, I don't know. There's just this this energy about you that is very, very peaceful. And very, just, I don't know. I just connected with you right away, and I'm really, really happy I did.
I am too.
So.
I have to admit to our listeners, this is going to be my favorite and my hardest interview to do. Rachel and I have been through a lot in the paranormal world, as friends as well. So forgive me, I will assume at times that you know things that there's no way you could know. But I remember that meeting, and we're both using air quotes here. There's some history there y'all find out about much later. We'll see if we can do an episode on, we'll talk about that in the future. And it was so many people. There were so many people there. And Rachel was there. I saw you just briefly. And that was it. And then we really connected here in Marlin for another investigation. I think it was definitely a connection there. And that has continued through. And I'll be honest with you, one of my favorite investigations that we did together was the Blue 60 in New Orleans.
Oh, that was such a blast. That was one of the coolest experiences ever.
It was awesome, between the activity as well as, I think, New Orleans alone.
Oh, man. That whole city.
It was great.
If I wasn't married and had a family, that's where I'd be. Honestly, that's where I'd be. I love that city so much. I love my family, too. Don't get me wrong. But that's just, there's something, I am pulled to that city. I can't explain it. I just am.
Oh, I definitely see that connection when we're there. It was obvious you belong there so thoroughly. Share a little bit about that it was an investigation. We actually went down a couple of days early.
Yeah, we did. That was fun.
Oh, that was
a lot of fun. So crazy. Oh man. Okay, so we stayed in this really cool house called the Blue 60. Great rooms. It was cool. The guy was just he was super nice. Just a nice guy. Nice host. And we had this very front room that actually kind of faced the street. So you could hear cars and things like that. And when you go out, you'd be on the stoop. Well, I remember I was sleeping, and, we had all of our stuff in the bathroom. And I remember listening, and I wear earplugs too. By the way, but it was loud enough for me to actually hear it through my earplugs. Crazy. So I heard somebody going through my makeup bag.
Which was in the bathroom.
Which was in the bathroom. And the door was closed. And there was, it sounded like someone just rattling through the makeup bag, like they're trying to look for something like mascara or lipstick, whatever. And I heard little clingings, but someone was going through this makeup bag. And I was like, what is that? And I thought it was you. I thought it was you in the bathroom. What's she doing in my makeup bag? And then all of a sudden, you come walking in the door.
The front door.
The front door off of the stoop, and you come in. And I'm like, I look at her, and I'm like, you were just in the bathroom? You're like, no, I went to Walgreens or something like that. And I was like, you will not believe what I just heard. And I heard someone in my, makeup bag, and they're looking around. I thought it was you. I just, out of a dead sleep, we both got up and we were straight into investigation mode. Like, we were looking around, we were looking if someone came in, and this was just one small little bedroom with a little kitchenette and one little bathroom. And the thing is that the door was closed and it locked from the outside. So I'm just kind of like, there's no way. And so we are in investigation mode, trying to figure out what's going on, but we were both stumped. And then we find out later from the history of even that whole area where the Blue 60 was, that's where a lot of, that was the gay. That's where all the gays were. That's where they all, they all got together. That's where they, partied and hung out. And a lot of them, that's where they would go. They would go in that area. So I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe there was someone looking for some lipstick. They just wanted to try it on. Maybe some mascara. I have no idea. They were just looking around in my makeup bag. But it was one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had in New Orleans.
That one was really hard to debunk.
No, it was. Because we were
crazy.
Going over everything. Like, did you do this? Did you put this here? Is this on here? This certain way? Did it fall over? No, it didn't fall over. So baffling still to this day.
And another interesting aspect of that particular location that we were at was on the game camera, catching the orb. And orbs are controversial. So what? Okay. But there was enough other stuff going on that, and basically what happened with the trail cam footage is I had gotten up, gotten dressed, took my makeup bag out of my bag that had my clothes in it and moved it. And over the course of those 4 frames, this orb follows my makeup bag all the way over to the other side of the room. So that happened within, 24 hours? Very close to
we had
Rachel's
just gotten there.
Yeah.
We had just gotten there. Like, we hadn't even been there just a day or so.
It was crazy. One of the most collaborative groupings of experiences and documentation that we've had so far. So that was definitely one of our favorites.
Oh man, it was so cool.
It was really nice.
I'm just thinking to myself, what did they look like and what were they trying to find? Like, I'm just like, that's cool. Like,
and we did find out later from the gentleman that owned the Blue 60 that there was actually a murder in that particular room in the late 70s, early 80s.
I want to say 70s, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere along that time before it became a better neighborhood. And so it was just, that one, I still get chills.
And I think it was actually when later on he was letting us know is because of his sexual preferences, which is unfortunate, but still, it was just like, still to this day, I'm just like, I want to go back there. I really want to go back there to see what happens.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love to go back there.
Well, we are going to move into a commercial break. We'll come back and talk with Rachel a little bit more. So hang around. And thanks for sticking around. Hey, we are here tonight with Rachel Sosa. She is another member of our Paranormal Brain Trust. Happens to be my favorite one, but we're not going to let everyone else know that, are we?
Hey. That was nothing.
Nothing. It was not paranormal either. And I want to spend this next little bit of time talking about one of Rachel's fabulous gifts. She's got many, but this is the one that tends to intrigue most people. I refer to Rachel as a psychic medium. She's going to argue with me on that title to a degree. I think I just about have her convinced, though. But Rachel, would you please give us a little idea of when you started realizing that you had this gift, and then tell us a little bit about what it looks like when you're working with it, and then you can tell me what you think it is.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm still getting used to that title, I guess you could say. For me, it actually started off with, and this is going to sound really strange, an exorcism.
Oh.
So when I was actually in early 20s, I started having some really messed up thoughts. I wanted honestly, I want to say the F word, but I'm not going to. But it was really, really bad. We're talking like just violent stuff. Huge strokes of bad luck. Nothing working out for me. And I actually told my boyfriend, now husband, Miguel, I did tell him, I was like, there's something going on here. Something's not right. And so I would actually, prior to that, I would start having all of these floodings of emotions and feelings and urges and anger. And this was all stuff like I was feeling perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden it was just like this huge, just flush of just energy with all of these different things. And I'm like, what is going on? To the point where, yes, I did think I was going crazy. I really did.
So these weren't your emotions
necessarily. No, I was perfectly fine. And then I walk into a grocery store, we'll put in there, and I put it in air quotes. And all of a sudden, all of these flushes of just different emotions. And it really, one, it scared me because I was like, I don't even know what's going on here. And then all of a sudden I'd be pissed off. I'd be angry. And then I would turn around and would be, sad and depressed. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So fast forward to that, and when we got to that point, I was like, Miguel, something's off, something is not right. I was like, I really do think, I feel like and these were my words, and he'll back me up on this, I felt like there was a battle going on inside. I really did. Okay. And so, no, this wasn't the whole, she's possessed by a demon. It was nothing like that. It was more of a spiritual battle with myself. Like there was a darker half fighting with the lighter half, and it's just trying to balance itself out now that I know this. And I actually went and I sought out a curandera, which is like a healer. And she specializes in, more of the Latino culture, Mexican, magic, or Latino magic. And I actually had to go and see her for 6 days. She gave me a reading. But before that, when I actually called her, she actually picked up the phone, and she's like, I never pick up this phone. I never pick up this phone, so I know this is something that I need to hear what's going on. And so when I actually went to go get a reading by her, she had her cards spread out or whatever, and she actually looked at me and she was like, you're a light worker. She was like, you're dealing with a lot of stuff going on right now. It's almost like a battle. And I was like, whoa. Tripped me out because I didn't say anything to her. And this is actually when I started kind of delving in tarot, just kind of with the oracle cards and everything. And she was like, you have a lot of gifts and you're a light worker. This is what you need to be doing. You need to be getting this out to people. And I'm like, okay.
And this was like the first time you'd ever heard this?
This is the first time I've ever even heard the term light worker. I had always been fascinated with the occult and magic and ghosts and, what have you. But this was the first time that I ever even heard the term light worker. I had no idea what that meant. So she just described it to me. She's like, you have all of these gifts, like gifts that you haven't even come into yet. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm in my 20s. What is this about? And she was like, and she asked me, she was just like, have you been having like really weird thoughts lately? Like almost kind of like, and I was like, I feel like my soul is being tugged apart. And she was like, that's normal. And I was like, okay. Like it was a lot to take in. So she basically told me, she was just like, you need to be cleansed. Like you need a clean slate. And I'm like, okay, how do we do that? And so literally her garage was her altar. If you can think about the size of a normal garage in a home, that was her altar. She had saints, she had candles, she had offering plates, she had velas, which are, lighted candles everywhere. And this is where she did her magic. And her altar was probably as long as this table in front of me, and it's pretty long. But this is where she did her magic. And she was just like, this is where you need to be. You need to come here for 6 whole days, because according to her, my protection was Sagrado Corazón, which is like the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Okay. So my number was 6. And so she was like, you need to come here for 6 days. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to bathe you in these herbs and we're going to get you cleansed. And what really tripped me out, this is what really tripped me out, because I had never experienced anything like this. And I guess you could call this my third paranormal experience. When I was actually getting cleansed, what tripped me out is that she started yelling at something in the garage that wasn't there.
Nothing that you could see.
Nothing that I could see.
Wasn't you that she was yelling at? It
was not me. And she was like, nope, you can't see this yet. You're not supposed to see these things yet. And I was like, is she talking to me or is she talking to this thing? She's like, no, you cannot see these things yet. And I'm like, okay. I had no idea what that meant until later. So, she started yelling at something that wasn't there. She was like, give me just 1 second. And this was the funny thing. She yelled at this thing in Spanish, girl. Like she went to town on this entity or whatever it was in there. And so I understand a lot of Spanish. And she was basically saying, get the hell out of here. This child does not belong to you, etc. Wow. So I was like, okay. And I'm like, what is going on? And so when she cleansed me off, because I had to be, cleansed off with the herbs and everything, and I was disposing of my clothes. And so when I was looking, I saw the pattern of, and this is really creepy to me. I saw, this is what I saw. I saw the umbilicus, and then I saw a fetus that was on the shirt that I was wearing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so what was interesting about that is that we were, in that time talking about having children. And so like when we got married, my now husband and I. Mm-hmm. And so she was just like, you wouldn't be able to have children if this didn't happen.
Oh, wow.
So it really opened my eyes. And honestly, after those 6 days, everything opened up. Everything. That's when I started having more feelings, but I was able to control them. And that's when the visions and the thoughts started moving in. I did not know what this was. I did not have all of the resources that everybody does now. So I had to kind of figure out this stuff on my own. Some of it was very scary. Some of it was very comforting. And this is when I found out about, ancestors, like spiritual ancestors. This is when I found out more about past lives and what was connected with me. This is when I found out about how visions were overlapping on one another, and that's how I had to single them out. Like you go to the left, you go to the right. Let me figure this out. Because when you're in a haunted location, sometimes they cross.
Yes. Okay.
So that's when I started seeing more things. But I had to learn what they meant to me. Not to everybody else.
Because then you use that to interpret so that others can understand what...
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So that's how I had to figure out how to interpret all of these things, not only for myself, but how to explain it to other people when I'm reading for someone or when I'm reading an area or a location and what I see, think, feel, hear, even taste or smell sometimes. You, of course, use all of your senses, but it's mostly what I see up in my mind's eye. And I don't see it like everybody else. And this is the weird thing. I compare it to the scene in the Titanic.
Okay.
That's the only way I can actually think about it. In the Titanic, and I don't know if everybody knows this scene. Listeners, if you know what I'm talking about. It's when, the little lady, Rose, mm-hmm. the old Rose, mm-hmm. and she's talking about what it was like, on the Titanic and how grand it was, right? And then it goes underwater and it shows that, but then it superimposes what the real Titanic was when it was done. That's what it looks like when I see something, but then it flashes and it's almost like it superimposes to what that time would be, what it looked like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People moving around. Like, if we go to an old hotel, Mineola, that was a really cool one. There was a hotel, but when I was looking, I saw people from that era, we're talking like 30s and 40s, moving around, sitting in chairs, reading newspapers, using the telephone that was in the telephone booth. I saw women coming down with fresh towels. That's what I see. But then I also have to kind of shake myself out of it, and then it returns to normal.
And normal looks totally different, doesn't it?
Yeah, because then you see people from reality now. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way I see things. Whenever I'm in a location, I'll see the comings and goings of what's actually going on. With spiritual people, that's different. They choose when to come, when they want to. If they want to be seen or if they want to be heard, they will. It takes a lot of energy. I've actually had a spirit tell me that.
Yes.
He was like, it takes a lot of energy to say something.
versus
just showing themselves. It takes more energy to actually like vocalize something on an EVP than it does to actually show themselves possibly on camera. Not actually as a full apparition, but just even as a mist.
Okay.
Or a shadow.
Yeah.
Because not all shadows are demons, people, okay? I just want to get that out there. Not all shadows are demons or bad things. Sometimes that's the only way that they can manifest themselves. It's like baby steps for them. First a shadow, then a mist. Sometimes
so
it's
like
in
a fuel
steps.
Tank. They've only got so much they can expend.
Yes, and
energy-wise.
especially if they've actually just transitioned, because they won't be able to do anything like that unless they have a full amped amount of power. So, or energy, I should say, not power. But with people that have been passed for quite a while, they know how to manipulate and use the energy to manifest itself. If they want to, if they choose to.
Okay. And
they do have likes and dislikes with people. And it's true. I mean, if they're very familiar with, say, like here in Marlin, because that's where we are, at the Palace Theater, they are very familiar with the people that come here every single day. So they don't mind if they show themselves. They're familiar with everyone. But if you have some, sometimes with people that are strangers that come in, they may not be as comfortable.
I'm going to stop us here.
Okay.
And move into commercial break, and we'll come right back. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those fabulous commercials. We're back with Rachel Sosa. And after that riveting segment a moment ago, I have to ask, what was your next step?
I ate tacos. I was really, really hungry.
I can imagine you were probably physically drained as well as emotionally and spiritually.
Appetite, but after that 6th day, I ate breakfast tacos. They were really good. It's almost kind of like when the taste leaves the taste for food. I still ate, of course, nourishment, but it just tasted different. I don't know if that does sound weird, but yeah, I ate tacos. Yeah. That's what I ate. And then started researching a lot of stuff. What a light worker was, what, divining was, what kind of gifts does a light worker have, what, so-called, and I'm putting this in air quotes right now, symptoms of a light worker. And it was pretty much kind of like all down the alley of what I was experiencing. I also did find out that, my empathic abilities were very, very strong, much to the point that I actually have a radius where I start picking up things and I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. So if anybody else has empathic abilities, or if they have issues with being in very crowded places, feel free to send me some, questions, and I will try to help you through it as much as you can, because I did not have all of the resources, like I said, like everybody else does now. Right. I had to do a lot of reading. I had to do a lot of internal reflection, working through the memories, working through the abilities, working through why I'm feeling this way when I was feeling good 10 minutes ago, those kinds of things. I also have to go into where there's light, there is dark. So you have to research both, because unfortunately, if you have any type of, psychic or mediumistic tendencies, you're going to see the light with the dark. You're going to see the bad and the good. It's all going to be a balance. And that was something I kind of had to learn the hard way, because there were things that I would see that were kind, warm, giving. And then there were also things that were invasive, scary, violent, and you have to learn how to be mentally okay with that, and how to put up those boundaries. Okay. That's a really important thing whenever you're delving into that.
And let's talk about that for a moment. Boundaries are so important, even in the non-spiritual world.
Oh, huge.
I know people, sometimes I have my own issues setting those boundaries and allowing people to take advantage of me. I can't imagine what it's like for someone like you, who deals not only with those people in this physical realm, but you also have the spiritual realm, potentially demonic realm, and all that other crap that we don't know about. How do you set those boundaries?
Honestly, it would be like just if you're telling someone, get the hell away from me. I mean, that's pretty much like, that's what, it's not like you have to be in this specific way of speaking to them. It's just kind of like, back off, like back the hell up. I don't want you coming that close to me. I don't welcome you to come this close to me. So you need to back up. If you want to talk to me, that's different, but you can do it at a distance. So that's kind of how I have to set those. Sometimes I have to get a little bit more, demanding with them, Most of the time, when spirit usually comes to me, especially like at work or something else, I'm like, I can't talk to you right now. Like, or whenever I am trying to not just read someone, but just kind of get a feel of it. If their emotions are a little bit too strong, I'm just kind of like, okay, I have to back away because it gets a little bit too overwhelming. Most of the time when it comes to spiritual things, though, I actually just have to tell them, you need to back off. I don't appreciate what you're doing. There has been a couple of instances where they've actually, the only term I can really say is violated my mind. And that was in Granbury.
The jail.
And I know that you remember that one.
Yes.
That was the only, and I've never let that happen since, but that was the one time that I wasn't prepared enough for the spirit that inhabited that jail.
And when you say that you weren't prepared enough, because at that point, I was still a very new investigator, very new to the paranormal, the whole, not to mention dealing with the individuals involved in that particular investigation as well. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that you weren't as prepared then? Was it a stronger presence than you had encountered before? Or was it more about the environment and the people you were with?
No, and no to all of those. And you know what the reason was? And I'll be honest, I got cocky.
I can handle this.
I got cocky. I was just like, yeah, I'll be fine. It's cool. It's just a jail. It's fine. I'll be good. And you know what? That's the one thing about being someone that has abilities. You have to hold yourself accountable. I will be honest and I will call myself out. I got cocky. I was just like, it's fine. It's cool. It's just an event. We're going to go in here for a few hours. It's cool. It's fine. Man, did he mess me up.
Yes, he did.
He messed me up. And to this day, and I thank the goddess, and I'm just like, thank you for teaching me this lesson, because I had me a huge, no, it wasn't even a slice. It was a whole pie of humble pie.
Yeah.
A whole pie. And so I had to stomach that, and I had to learn my lesson from it. And so now it has made me more aware. It has made me more respectful of the spirit world, because I did respect them, but I have to respect the bad ones too. And that's one of the things that you're just like, I can handle this. No, if you're not prepared for that mentally or physically, spiritually, they're going to have their way with you. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty strong at that point. No, they definitely, he taught me a lesson. That man taught me a lesson.
And it took you a bit to get over that.
Oh man, I had to leave the jail to get out of there, because he did a number. Like, he was showing me some very twisted things that I was just like, this is really messed up. I cannot even believe that he's still in my head right now, and I'm outside of the jail.
And that was many years ago.
That was many years ago. And I've come a long way since then about developing my gifts, my abilities, the boundaries that I set. And it's just like, I don't feel bad. I'm like, sometimes people are just like, it's okay, it's a spirit. Come, it's fine. You can come forward, but you don't know what you're dealing with sometimes. So if you have to be a little bit more, belligerent, and just be like, you need to back off, and even not. I would never provoke anything, because that's just messed up. But you have to kind of have it like you would with a child almost. If you're really, really upset. And you're just like, get away from me. Don't talk to me right now. This is not cool. This is not cool. And I did. I learned my lesson from that. That will never happen again. And it hasn't since, because I've learned my lesson, and I've read more about, protection techniques, mm-hmm. and how to, surround myself with what I need to protect my own, and also to protect others if needed. Because the one thing with the living is that also some of them you can see. It's kind of interesting. You can see who's vulnerable and who is not. You kind of learn how to read their energy, or as I say, glean them. So, and that way you can just kind of, I like to protect everyone, but you know who needs a little bit more.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like that child that needs a tiny bit more direction or attention. Okay.
But as far as developing, lots of reading. Lots of reading and practice, meditation. I'm still learning how to do that. Like, it's really hard to quiet your mind when everything, because I'm a mom and I have a family, so it's really hard to be like, okay, I'm just going to just sit here and I'm going to meditate and listen to the birds. No, that's just, it's really hard to get that down.
Well, let's talk for a minute as well. You bring up these nurturing things that you do, you know, being a mother, taking care of others on these investigations and all. Tell our listeners a little bit about what your day job is.
Okay. I am actually a clinical medical assistant, so I deal with all the, injections and shots and blood draws and all that good stuff. And I actually work with pain management patients, which is really, really challenging for someone like me. Very challenging. It can be very draining, energy-wise. I have to constantly shield myself every single day. So I actually bring stuff with me. I have like my holy water. I've got my lavender water that I spray around my area all the time. I spray it around myself, and there's no joke. I have to, because I have to be able to shield myself. It can be really challenging. You know, I love my job. Don't get me wrong. I love my job. I love dealing with my patients. They're amazing. Some of them are just very positive and very loving and caring. Others, are they cranky? Sure. They're in pain.
Right.
You know, they're in pain.
I'm not much fun when I'm in pain either.
Who is? Like,
Exactly.
I welcome this pain. It's so great. No, it's not. Like, it's really challenging and it's very debilitating, and it's, it can be very, it brings depression and it brings anxiety, and it can be really tough. But what's really interesting is that some of the spiritual things that I see in mind's eye, I have to be very wary of, because I literally sometimes have to come home and I will have to either go take a shower, or I will just have to just leave me be for a minute so I can decompress, because it can be challenging and draining.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of those protective measures. You brought up holy water and lavender water. What are some of the other things that people need to be aware of when they're stepping out into this paranormal investigation type world? Are there things that new investigators, or even ones that have been doing it for a little bit, that need to be paying attention to when they step out into this new world?
As far as like, are these like a tip kind of thing?
Yeah,
or
kind of
is
like
it
a tip thing, as well as like, what does it take for you?
Okay. For me, I always have to do, I carry salt and one of my favorites, sage. It can be very powerful when paired with other herbs. I usually pair it with like cedar, and I'll pair it with bay leaves, lavender. I'll even do some palo santo, which is like a sacred wood, and it smells amazing. Go get some. But I will bring all of that. I even bring, like, to events, I will bring it. I have my smudge feather and I have my abalone shell, and I go to town. I do offer, smudgings for other people who don't feel comfortable. As far as like what to expect when you go into an investigation, I always tell people, pay attention to how you feel.
Okay, let's come back to that after this next commercial break, and we'll go from there. So y'all stick around. Welcome back, Topic Paranormal listeners. Hey, Rachel Sosa is with us, and we're going to now move into tips. It's always great to get other people's tips for new investigators. So tell me, Rachel, what's your number one tip?
Okay, so my number one tip is the whole safety issue, don't go alone. Here's why. So, obviously, safety first, right?
Right.
You always want to make sure that you have a backup. Second, if you have a type of experience and you're by yourself, how the hell are you going to validate it?
Exactly. Wow.
To me, I've had a couple of people in the paranormal world who go off by themselves, and then they come back, and I had this most awesome, if you don't have an instrument, by the way, I had this most coolest experience ever. And I'm like, really? Did you record it? No. Did you have an EVP? No. Did you have a video? No. If you have someone else with you, it's another set of eyes. And it's for safety. Don't go alone. Yeah. Also for validation. I can't stress it enough, guys. Don't go alone. Not just for safety reasons, but you have an extra pair of eyes to back you up whenever you have this cool experience. And it's also cool to have an instrument too, because that's always awesome. So my number 2 is this beautiful angelic creation called coffee. And it is the most wonderful thing ever. If you ever are on investigation and you just don't feel like you have enough energy, just grab a cup.
A cup, it's a
yes. Wonderful, wonderful thing.
Now, I personally prefer mine black, just as black as it can be. Rachel has her own concoction there.
I don't even know what it is. I just throw stuff together. No, I'm just kidding. I do the half and half, the creamer and the sugar. So I'm all happiness inside whenever I start sipping on my coffee.
And that's non-flavored creamer, by the way.
Yes,
none of the hazelnut nonsense.
Yeah, I kind of got away from that. When you get older, your taste buds change, and you just feel like you need to go back to the plain Jane. So that's where I'm at right now.
What's your third tip?
My third tip, honestly, is I don't care what you do spiritually. If you, believe in Allah or God or the goddess or, Cthulhu, I don't care. Just whatever you have that you have faith in, as long as you have faith in something to shield and protect yourself with that, because you don't know what you're walking into spiritually. I don't care how much history research that you've done on a place, you don't know. And I can say that as someone who has abilities.
Yes.
So, I always, even though you do research on something, you don't really know quite what you're walking into when it comes to things and spirits and even the building itself, because it's got energy infused into every little nook and cranny. So you never know. Remember American Horror Story, people, the house, murder house, lots of stuff going on in there. So I always take it that way as far as a precaution. As far as cleansing yourself and everything afterwards, if you happen to have some holy water, I would always, I like to tell people, and actually just told a friend, Nick, actually today, get some salt. I don't care what kind of salt it is, just whatever. Himalayan salt infused with honey and milk. I don't care. As long as you've got some salt, put some holy water in there and just use it as a salt scrub, and it's exfoliating.
Oh, there you go. Soft
so it makes your
hands
skin
too.
on nice and pretty. So, and just kind of scrub your body down, and that kind of gets all, rid of all of the negative sludge. And then don't forget to thank the water for washing it off.
There you go.
It's kind of rushing all that stuff down the drain. And just if you have, access to herbs and things like that, it's always a cool thing too. I mean, doing a smudging is really cool. If you want to kind of go even a little bit further than that, we can do, I always like to do some eggshells and salt.
Okay.
You can always line, windows with that. You can line the perimeter of your home. You can actually kind of just burn that with some of the sage. Does it smell weird? Yes, it does, but it is effective.
There you go.
So, and I normally don't do that. I usually do the perimeter of the home with eggshells and salts for clients and things, but saging is always good, smudging, with different herbs. Like I said, I always pair it with cedar and bay leaves and lavender with the Palo Santo. For me, that's my go-to combination right there. So,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The question that popped into my mind as you were talking about that is, do you think that herb mixture, is that different not only from person to person, but maybe even their ethnic background, their religious beliefs?
I think it can be. That's just kind of, like I said, that's kind of my go-to formula. Just with, people that have talked to me about using different types of herbs, and then also just reading different things about the spiritual potency and reason that maybe like bay leaves are used, or Palo Santo is used, or even lavender. Even some people even put chamomile, in some of their,
I haven't heard of that
and
one.
it makes a great tea.
Yes.
So you can just kind of, work it all in there. I think it's actually everybody's preference. Whoever's, delves into, their spiritual practices or rituals, whatever kind of herbs and things that they decide that they want to use, or actually what they're intuitively guided to use, is always, key. Right. There might be some times where I have a client that I want to use sage and bay leaves versus, another client that I just need to use Palo Santo. Maybe that's all they need.
Okay.
So, and then others, maybe I'll just burn candles. So I think it's cultural background. Yeah, it has a lot to do with that. I think with whatever practice that they actually want to, like a ritual, will use other herbs versus another.
Okay.
So, I think it's whatever I think it's more intuition based too. Like whatever they're drawn to use.
That would make sense. Mm-hmm. If it's something you're drawn to, you're going to feel comfort in that. You're going to feel some security in that.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was just checking our time here. We've got a little bit longer. Yay! So let's talk a bit about resources. You mentioned a lack of resources when you first started into realizing your gifts and all. So what would be a good resource for people? What would you recommend? A book, a podcast, website, YouTube video, anyone in particular?
For me, I started doing a lot of things with, I want to say it was a website called the Pagan Library. I think. I don't quote me on that. I'll try to see if I can find out exactly what it is. I did do, when I first started delving into everything, I did use the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology, just because of the fact that there was a lot of information as far as, rituals, what it was about, histories behind some of the culture, and I mean, if you can look up anything, it's encyclopedia, so you can look up anything. And then there was also the history of witchcraft. I can't remember the author, but I'll get back to that. And then Anna Riva, she was another, and these are old books too. This is like me starting out with candle magic rituals and colors and days of the week, which ones you could use to, boost your ritual or boost your intention, so to speak. A lot of colors were involved in that too, like which colors pertain to what. There's also information in there about saints, like what colors go with different saints. Okay. Or numbers, which saints go with your numbers. So, and those are all ingrained in here in my vault. So Anna Riva was a really good important one for me. Scott Cunningham, just because of the fact that it was more Wiccan related, I just kind of started learning about the Sabbats and the Esbats and the actual wheel of the year. I tend to practice more pagan ritual and witchcraft, so I'm not really, Wiccan is more of kind of a religion, and so for me it's more intuitive practice for me. So I kind of gravitate towards that, but it was a lot of reading. Now that there is the internet and it's available.
Yes, at one point in time, the internet did not exist.
Just opened up for me. I mean, it was just great. So now I'm just kind of I don't know. You give it a goog. You're just what do you want to look up? The Pagan Library. I want to say it's a Pagan Library. So I think that was a big one. And then, another one for me is the Sisters Enchanted. They have a really great Facebook page, just because you can get a lot of, besides paranormal investigating, I also do tarot reading and oracle reading, but we'll get back to that later. But there's a lot of really cool tips on that too, because they're also practicing witches as well. So I like to do that. Mm-hmm.
And we'll get a list together and get it on our Facebook page, Topic Paranormal. That way you've got a reference back to. And we're going to leave Rachel now, but she will be back in the future. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You are listening to Topic Paranormal with your host, Georgina Holzmeyer, and the Paranormal Brain Trust, Robert M. Brown, Nick Landy, and Rachel Sosa. Topic Paranormal covers Paranormal Talk, Paranormal Tales, Paranormal Training, and so much more. Experience the topics of conversation on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Topic Paranormal. Have a topic suggestion or a question? Send an email to topicparanormal@gmail.com or post it to the Topic Paranormal Facebook page. Topic Paranormal is part of the Astronet Radio family. Visit astronetradio.com for more awesome podcasts.
This episode, copyright 2019 by astronetradio.com. All rights reserved.